Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm back here on my back porch patio, enjoying the sunshine while it lasts. They're calling for rain later today and for the next few days, so I'm going to enjoy this while it is here. It is Monday, and so I have a Monday message for you. Here's kind of what's on my mind today. I have been thinking a lot this past week about how our church is continuing to be church, even though we have not been together in person for over 2 months, which is just unheard of if you really think about it, to think before this whole thing that we would have ever thought that not coming together at all for anything as a church in person, we could still be church in that. In some ways, I think we're being church better than before. But I've been thinking about the ways that we have been church and the ways that it's showing us that, it's not about a building or a place, but it's about the people and the God who loves us as God's people. I'm thinking about, for instance, our prayer team that has been in existence for a while now, long before this pandemic, and how they are lifting up in prayer those in our congregation who are ill, who are grieving, who are struggling in some way. Think about the way that they're being church. I think about the care team. This was something that was started when the stay-at-home order went into place. These are people who are reaching out intentionally to connect with our homebound members, members without email addresses, those that might feel a little disconnected if we're not coming together in person. They are also people who can help pick up groceries or supplies for those who really ought not to be out and about. And I'm thinking about the way that they are being church. Incidentally, if you have something that you would like for the prayer team to be praying for, or if the care team can be of assistance to you, please reach out to Rebecca. She can help with that. I'm thinking about the way that our children and youth are being church, even though they're not gathering together, even though we do not see it. Sunday school is still happening, youth group is still happening, and young lives are being formed and shaped and impacted every single week. I think of things like the news this past week that some in our church family made 300 sandwiches for Urban Ministry Center. Their needs are increasing exponentially, as you probably can imagine. They need about 300 sandwiches a day to feed the people that they need to feed. And our single church provided food for one day for everybody. This is something that we are going to continue to do. And if it is something that you and your family feel that you can help with, please reach out to Linda Opdyke or Rebecca. I think about our associate pastor nominating committee. They started last fall on our journey that will lead us to our next called and installed associate pastor. They have continued the work during the stay-at-home time, doing a lot of things virtually, obviously, continuing to vet candidates and keep us on track and adapting their search in new ways that they need to, and we're grateful for that. And also, I think of worship. We've been doing online virtual worship every week for scripture and song, for prayer and proclamation. If I'm honest, I figured at some point we would see that participation start to drop off a little bit, but we have remained remarkably consistent in the people who are joining to be part of this worship experience. We're also reaching people outside of Trinity, guests, if you would, who are finding out more about our church. And we're also reaching people in our church who wouldn't be able to come to in-person worship anyway, but they can dial in or listen in. And that's just been wonderful. Jan Edmonston, our Presbytery exec, does a daily blog that you really ought to check out. There's a link below. But in the blog she posted today, rather timely, at the very end, she says this: if your church has continued to offer worship and mission, you have never closed. If your church has continued to offer worship and mission, you have never closed. Now, as I've been talking about our ministerial staff, our worship ministry team, and our session, continue having conversations about when and how we can safely gather together again. And I am convinced that that will happen in some form at some point. But when we do, I want to be clear, It will not be a reopening of Trinity, because Trinity, my friends, has never closed. We have worshiped, we have engaged in mission, we have cared for one another, and we have grown with one another. That is what churches do, and so we have never stopped being church. That's kind of what's on my mind this week, as there is in our larger culture a greater push for churches to come back together again. We got to come back together again. And then sort of a counter to that, I don't know if you saw in the Charlotte Observer, there was an article that came out today with some local faith leaders. I was able to be part of that group that sort of is relaying a different message. And I encourage you to check that out. There's a link to that article below if you would like. My friends, I continue to pray for you. I continue to think about you. As I say every time, I ask you and invite you to reach out and connect with each other, find ways that you are being church to one another in these times. I hope you have a great rest of the Monday and a great week. Be safe, be kind, be church.